Hi, I'm Lorene, and on the night before my wedding, my parents gave me a choice: cancel it or walk down the aisle without them. I wish I could say I was surprised, but the truth is, that moment was just the loudest in a lifetime of silences. What kind of family erases you quietly, one skipped invitation at a time? Have you ever felt like you were being written out of your own story? Let me know in the comments. The night before my wedding, my phone rang at 10:42 p.m. I was brushing my hair in front of the mirror, still deciding whether to wear it up or down. When I saw Mom flash across the screen, I hesitated. I already knew what this was. My fingers went cold before I even picked up. Her voice was soft, too soft, the kind of softness that didn't soothe, but warned. "Cancel the wedding or be alone," she said. "Darla can't handle this." That was the end of it. No discussion, no compromise, no offer to meet halfway. I stared at the wall for a long time after hanging up, the silence in the house pressed against me like fog. Cameron was asleep in the guest room, giving me space as I'd asked. I wanted to scream, but instead, I walked into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and sat down at the table like nothing had happened. I didn't tell him, not yet. I didn't want pity in his eyes on our wedding day. Weeks before, things had already begun to shift. Darla had stopped making eye contact when we visited my parents. She clung to Cameron's words, laughed too loudly at his jokes, lingered when she touched his arm. "Are you sure he really sees you?" she had asked me once, casually, like it was a joke. Mom had just smiled. "She's just sensitive these days. Let her be." I let her be. I let it go. I let so many things go that I stopped noticing what I was losing. A week before the wedding, I dropped off my invitations by hand. I remember placing the envelope on the console table near my parents' front door. My mother didn't even glance at it. The day after that call, I found myself back at their house, not because I wanted to, but because I needed something from the attic. That's when I saw it. My wedding invitation, still sealed, still pristine, sitting in the drawer next to the old TV remote. Written in my mother's handwriting across the back were 5 words: "Don't open, it'll upset Darla." I didn't cry. I took the envelope, smoothed it flat, and put it back in its place. The next morning, the sun rose on schedule. The flowers arrived. The makeup artist showed up at 7:30 sharp. No one knew anything had shifted, and I made sure of that. I wore the dress I'd chosen alone. I didn't have a father on my arm. I walked myself down the aisle. The whispers came in waves, but I heard none of them. Cameron stood waiting, his eyes calm, steady. His parents, Judith and Edgar, smiled like they already knew what I had given up just to stand there. And in my head, a line repeated like breath. I wasn't walked down the aisle. I walked myself into my life. Later that night, after the reception ended and our guests had gone, I sat on the edge of our bed in silence. My wedding journal rested in my lap, unopened until now. I wrote only one line. "This wasn't the beginning I wanted, but it's the one I chose." A soft knock came at the door, then the sound of paper sliding across the floor. No name, no handwriting. But it was my envelope, the one I had sealed years ago, long before any of this. It was supposed to be a casual lunch with my cousin Haley, someone I hadn't seen since we were teenagers passing roles at Thanksgiving dinners. We met at a tiny diner halfway between our towns, the kind with squeaky booths and weak coffee, but where the eggs always tasted like someone's grandmother still worked the griddle. We were swapping small updates: jobs, kids, houses. Haley had just come back from a wedding, one I hadn't heard about. "You didn't go?" she asked, blinking. "I thought for sure I'd see you there." There was a pause. I stirred my iced tea without drinking it. "No," I said. "I wasn't invited." She laughed softly like I was kidding. Then she stopped. "They didn't put you on the guest list? That's strange." Strange. That word lingered like the aftertaste of something spoiled. Later that week, I opened an old inbox I rarely checked, one I used during grad school and never got around to deleting. Buried in the spam folder was a forwarded email thread. Wedding planning, names listed, hotel blocks, seating charts. Lorene Shipman, do not include beneath it, another line from the coordinator. Therese specifically asked to leave her off the list, said it might upset Darla. I wasn't surprised anymore. I scrolled down further. Notes about the slideshow. Family through the years. Photo attachments. A highlighted comment. Please be sure none of the images show Lorene, just to be safe. Safe from what? From my face? From my presence? From the fact that I existed at all? I closed the laptop slowly and exhaled. It wasn't forgetting. It wasn't a mistake. It was a decision. That night, I looked through old digital albums, birthday parties, vacations, holiday dinners. I started noticing things. In pictures where I had once stood between my sister and my mother, the tags were gone. My name no longer linked to those memories. I stared at one picture from the Christmas before I got married. Everyone wearing matching pajamas. I remembered picking them out, ordering the sizes, wrapping each one myself. There I was, still in the frame, off to the side, half cut by the tree. No tag, no mention, no trace. I remembered a 4th of July cookout years ago. I had driven 2 hours, brought homemade potato salad. When I got there weren't enough chairs. Mine had been used to hold purses. "Oh," my mom had said, "we didn't think you were coming this year." That night, I sat on the deck railing, plate in my lap, watching fireworks alone. It hadn't stung then. Not like this. Back then, I still believed in misunderstandings. But now I could see it was never one moment. It was a pattern, a method. Each omission was a stitch. Together, they formed a quilt that covered my absence. And then, the final pin, a group email from the Skakel side of the family. Subject line, Annual Reunion, RSVP now. I clicked the link. The page loaded slowly as if giving me time to brace. You are not authorized to view this event. I stared at the screen. It wasn't even anger I felt. It was the kind of emptiness that doesn't echo, the kind that makes you realize how quietly someone can lock a door and walk away without ever slamming it. "I guess I'm not family anymore," I whispered, but no one was there to hear it. It was just a photo, a simple throwback, one of those grainy, overlit shots from a 4th of July picnic long before anyone had started using filters. I posted it without thinking, just a caption that read, "Back when we still called each other family." I didn't expect much. Maybe a few likes, maybe silence. Instead, 2 hours later, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom. "Sweetheart, maybe take it down. Darla might see it and feel upset again." I stared at it, not because I was surprised, but because of how carefully she had worded it. Like she was keeping the peace. Like I was the one stirring something dangerous by simply existing in a photo. I didn't respond. I just deleted the post and closed the app. Then I opened another one. I clicked into the Skakel family group chat. Or rather, what used to be the group chat. The thread was gone. Not archived, not silent. Gone. I opened my old email and searched for invites. Found nothing. Until, buried deep in my spam folder, a notification from 2 years ago. You have been removed from the group Skakel Family Planning 2021. Just that. No explanation, no replacement invite. Just the digital equivalent of a closed door. And the worst part? I wasn't even surprised. I scrolled through my phone's photo archive and looked for patterns. I found pictures where I used to be tagged. Vacations, birthdays, holidays, tags removed, comments gone, a virtual ghost of someone they used to acknowledge. That night, I sat on the porch and tried to remember the last time anyone in my family had messaged me without a purpose. Not a birthday text, not a forwarded meme, just a "how are you?" from someone who wasn't Cameron or my kids. I came up empty. Then came the memory. It was my father's birthday. Mid-pandemic. Everyone did a Zoom call, apparently. I didn't know about it until I saw it pop up on my cousin's Instagram story. When I asked Mom, she said, "Oh, honey, I thought you were busy with the kids." Busy with the kids. Busy being excluded. Busy not being missed. I opened my journal and wrote what I couldn't say out loud. They didn't block me to hurt me. They blocked me because they no longer saw a reason to keep me. It wasn't hatred. That would have required energy. This was worse. This was apathy. Days passed. I cooked dinner, helped Maya with her math homework, paid bills, and then one evening, as I was checking Facebook for school announcements, I saw a notification. "You may know Darla Skakel." I hesitated. Clicked. Her profile was public. There in the second row of photos was an image that used to include me, a group picture from a wedding I hadn't been invited to. Everyone dressed in pastel, all smiles under string lights. Cameron had been cropped in from another photo, placed beside Darla. The caption read, "The ones who mattered most." I didn't throw my phone. I didn't scream. I just stared at that screen for a very long time. And for the first time, I felt something crack. Not a sob, not even anger. Just a shift. Something inside me moved out of place. The envelope was pink, soft to the touch, and smelled faintly of vanilla perfume. Cameron handed it to me like it was a receipt from the pharmacy. Something ordinary, something meant for someone else. "It's from Darla," he said. I didn't say anything right away. I just stared at the cursive handwriting on the front. "To someone who still makes my heart race." Inside, a birthday card. His birthday. Not ours. Not a shared family date. Just his. He opened it, sitting beside me at the kitchen table. The kids were asleep. The house was quiet, but something inside me wasn't. The message was handwritten. Ink slightly smudged. Too personal. "You've always been my safe place," she wrote. "Do you remember the lakeside sketch trip? You told me I looked like a painting." I looked up at Cameron. He blinked slowly, then shook his head. "We never went to any lake together," he said. I knew that, but it still stung. Because Darla wasn't just clinging to the past. She was rewriting it. I remembered a birthday party 2 years ago. Cameron and I were passing out cupcakes when Darla raised her glass in a toast and said, "If I could ever find a man half as thoughtful as Cameron, I'd be set for life." The room laughed. My parents laughed. I smiled then too, because what else was I supposed to do? They didn't see danger, they saw drama, and they always protected drama. Now, sitting here with her card in Cameron's hands, I didn't feel threatened. I felt tired. Cameron offered to call her, said he could clarify, draw a line, but I stopped him. "No," I said. "Let her think she wrote a chapter. Doesn't mean we have to read it." He looked at me for a long time, then folded the card and dropped it into the drawer beside the sink. We never spoke of it again. That night, as I was organizing the bills, I opened the side drawer of our bedroom dresser, looking for a stamp. Instead, I found my own birthday card, unopened, blank inside, no signature, no message. Just a store-bought sentiment and a yellowed envelope with my name written in my mother's handwriting. I remembered the year. That was the same week Darla had been going through a rough patch. Mom had said, we didn't want to overwhelm her, so we kept things low-key. So low-key they forgot to sign the card. I ran my fingers across the unsealed flap, and for the first time, I didn't wonder what they were thinking when they left me out. I wondered when I stopped expecting them not to. Cameron handed me his phone, with the kind of hesitation that comes when something feels wrong but familiar. "It's from your mom," he said. The message was short, friendly even. "We're having a little dinner next weekend. Cameron is more than welcome. Maybe Lorene should sit this one out, just to keep things light." I read it twice. Then again, I didn't feel shocked. I didn't feel hurt. I felt predicted. "I'm not even surprised anymore," I said, handing the phone back. This wasn't new. It was just the first time they'd stopped pretending. Cameron didn't reply right away. He stared at the screen like it might offer another interpretation. Something softer. Something less deliberate. In the end, he sent a short message. "Thanks for the invite, I'll have to pass." I thought that would be it, a boundary drawn, a quiet no. But a few days later, something came in the mail, addressed to Cameron, with no return name. Just our home address typed neatly in the corner. He opened it at work. Texted me a photo of what was inside. It was a printed picture from a family barbecue, one I remembered organizing. I had prepped the food, decorated the patio, bought extra citronella candles so no one would complain about bugs. In the photo, I wasn't there. Not standing, not seated, not cropped, removed, photoshopped out, as if I had never stood between my sister and my husband, as if I had never existed. Beneath the photo was a sticky note, just a reminder of who really belongs. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I just felt something sharp and clean move through my chest. Not pain, not even sadness, just clarity. I remembered that barbecue. I had scrubbed every dish after, waved goodbye to every guest. Darla had worn white and stood too close to Cameron all evening. Mom had taken most of the pictures. They didn't just delete me, they replaced me. That night, I took down the gallery wall in our hallway, the one with old family photos that I had clung to like proof. One by one, I placed the frames in a box, not out of spite, out of self-preservation. I began to remove myself too, from group albums, from old threads, from digital memories that were built on pretense. I blocked Darla first, then my mother, then the extended web of people who only ever remembered me when I made them uncomfortable. I thought I could survive silence, I wrote in my journal. I didn't expect to be rewritten. It wasn't the kind of erasure that left gaps. It was the kind that rewrote history so thoroughly, even I began to doubt it. The next morning, Cameron walked into the kitchen holding his phone again. "Your mom followed up," he said, voice tight. The message read, "We're just trying to protect Darla. Surely Lorene understands." I looked at it, then at him. Without asking, he handed me the phone. I typed back, "She does, and she won't forget." I wasn't supposed to hear it. That much was clear. But my mother hadn't hung up properly, or maybe she didn't know her voicemail was still recording. I had called earlier to check on a prescription refill for my father. It went to voicemail, and I hung up after the beep. But the message kept going. I only noticed because I accidentally tapped play instead of delete later that evening. Their voices came through the speaker, distant but unmistakable. "We never should have let her marry him," my mother said. Her tone wasn't angry. It was regretful, as if she were talking about a missed opportunity. My father replied, "Darla needed Cameron more, she still does." There was a pause. Then the message cut off. I sat at the edge of our bed, phone still in my palm. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just let the words settle, like dust on the surface of water. It didn't shake me, it confirmed me. A few days later she called. "Hey, sweetie," my mother chirped. Too sweet, too casual. "Just checking in. We haven't heard from you." There was something almost cheerful in her voice. The way someone sounds when they're trying not to acknowledge the elephant in the room because they're still riding it. She moved quickly into updates about Darla. "She's having a hard time again," she said. "But you know how she is. Sensitive. You've always been the strong one." I didn't say anything. "I mean, really, Lorene," she continued. "You've always managed on your own. Darla, she needs more. You understand, right?" I smiled into the phone. "I used to." That was the last thing I said before I ended the call. That night I thought about all the times strong was used like a compliment, a badge I never asked to wear. Strong meant uninvited. Strong meant unconsidered. Strong meant unloved in the most polite way. When I was 5 and scraped my knee, Darla cried louder than I did, and she was the one who got the ice pack and the lollipop. When I was 12 and won the school writing contest, my parents said, "That's nice, but let's not make Darla feel bad. She tries hard too." When I was 17 and got into college with a partial scholarship, they suggested I defer, so they could help Darla figure things out. I was told I was independent. What they meant was disposable. That week, I started cutting cords, not with anger, but with care. I archived every email, downloaded every voicemail. I took screenshots of old messages, gathered every photo I could find. Not for revenge, for record. I wanted to see it all for what it was, unfiltered. Then I made decisions. I removed myself from family calendars, unsubscribed from group threads, blocked numbers I used to wait for texts from. I wasn't retreating. I was reclaiming. I told Cameron over dinner one night, "I'm done asking to be included. Now, I decide where I belong." He nodded, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to explain what I meant. 2 days later, Darla messaged me directly. "I know what you're doing," it read. "Just remember, you're not the only one who can fight." I read it once, then again, then deleted it without replying. I didn't need to respond. I had already said everything I needed to by stepping away. It started with a knock. Not the kind that's frantic or angry, just steady, determined. I opened the door, and there she was. Darla stood on my front porch with a bouquet of peonies clutched in both hands. Her makeup was perfect, but her eyes were rimmed in red. Behind me, Cameron stepped into the hallway. Maya hovered on the stairs, silent and still, watching. I just want to talk, Darla said. Woman to woman. I held the door open, but didn't speak. She walked past me as if she belonged there, sat at the kitchen table like she had been invited. I sat across from her. She looked around the room, our room, the photos, the dishes, the soft light spilling in through the windows. I never got to have this, she said quietly. Any of it. I waited. You got the husband, the house, the kids. I got… what? Scraps of attention and fake promises. You don't know what it's like to watch your little sister live the life that was supposed to be yours. I inhaled, but slowly. Then she pulled out a letter from her purse. Folded, worn, edges curled from years of being opened and reread. She placed it on the table and slid it toward Cameron. I wrote this after your wedding, she said. I just never had the courage to give it to you. Cameron didn't touch it. She opened it herself and began to read aloud. You smiled at me once, and I thought my chest would cave in. You held the door open, and I thought, God, let it be me next to him. I loved you before she even knew you. Her voice broke on the last line. I didn't move. I didn't blink. The room felt smaller. I saw myself from above, frozen at the table while someone else tried to rewrite the love story I had actually lived. Cameron reached for my hand. Darla looked at us, and for a second, something flickered in her expression. Not jealousy, desperation. You never loved him, I said. My voice was steady, low. You loved the idea of being chosen. You loved what he meant, safety, attention, a shortcut to the kind of life you think you deserve. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. And none of that, I added, was ever mine to give you. She stood suddenly, the chair scraping against the floor. If you won't give him to me, she whispered, I'll make you wish you had. She turned and walked out the door. I stood in the kitchen, Cameron's fingers still gently wrapped around mine. Maya came down the stairs. Was Aunt Darla mad? She asked. I knelt and looked her in the eyes. No, I said softly. She wasn't mad. She was lost. As I stood again, I turned to Cameron. She doesn't want you, I said. She wants my life. I looked toward the front door. And that she can't have. The air felt heavier than usual that morning. The kids were in the backyard, chasing each other through the late spring grass, their laughter soft but distant. Cameron was brewing tea, humming some forgotten tune, trying to keep the house light. I stood at the counter, holding the envelope in my hand. It wasn't new. I had written it 2 years ago, folded it, sealed it, and tucked it in the drawer behind old receipts and takeout menus. I didn't expect to use it. I'd hoped I wouldn't have to. But here we were. When the knock came, it didn't startle me. I already knew who it would be. I opened the door to all 3 of them, my mother, my father, and Darla. They didn't say anything, just looked at me like I was the one who owed them something. No tears, no yelling, only expectation. I led them to the dining table. They sat without being invited, like muscle memory had carried them there. I didn't sit. I placed the envelope between them and stepped back. I wrote this 2 years ago, I said quietly. I just never had the chance to hand it to you. Until now. No one reached for it. In my mind, I read it aloud. You didn't forget me. You chose to pretend I didn't exist. You skipped my birthdays, avoided my photos, left me out of weddings, holidays, even conversations. But I still showed up. For you, for this family. I gave you every version of myself that was easy to love, until it started to feel like self-harm. I loved you through erasure. I excused every omission as accident, every silence as exhaustion, every betrayal as loyalty misfired. But now I see it. And I can't unsee it. And if you need something from me now, don't. I can't keep dying in small ways just to keep you alive in my world. Therese reached for the envelope but paused. Your family, she said softly, as if those 2 words should still mean something. I shook my head. No, I was a placeholder for someone you actually loved. My father looked down, said nothing. Darla stared at the envelope like it might explode. Her lips trembled, but it wasn't grief. It was frustration. They still didn't get it. Cameron came and stood behind me, his hands resting gently on my shoulders. The kids peeked in from the hallway, watching. I stood tall, breathing in the stillness, letting it fill the parts of me that had once been desperate for their approval. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted peace. And that kind of peace requires subtraction. They didn't pick up the letter. They didn't ask what it said. Instead, they stood. Darla moved first, brushing past me with a muttered whisper. "You're cold." I didn't flinch. "No," I said. "I'm done." The door closed behind them with the softest click, and for once, it didn't echo. The morning light spilled across the floor in long, quiet strokes. The house was hushed in a way that felt earned, not eerie. A half-drunk cup of tea sat on the counter, the lemon slice floating like a faded sun. I stood there for a while, just watching it. Cameron came in and kissed the top of my head. "Do you regret any of it?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. I thought about the years I had tried to make myself smaller, the space I gave, the silence I gifted, the ache I dressed up as maturity. "No," I said finally, "only that I waited this long." Outside, the garden was still damp with dew. The chairs around the table were speckled with petals that had blown down from the dogwood tree. There were 4 of them, always had been. I had never sat in the 4th. It wasn't that it had been off limits. No one said anything. No one claimed it. But somehow it became understood. An unspoken agreement that the 4th seat belonged to a version of me who still needed permission. This morning, I pulled it out. The legs scraped softly against the patio bricks. I smoothed the back cushion, sat down, and let my hands fall into my lap. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt still. In the days following the final confrontation, no one from my family reached out, not even to argue, not even to explain. Darla posted a vague message on social media. "When people show you who they are, believe them the first time." Therese deleted her Facebook. Ronald called once, left no message. It was their silence that confirmed everything. Sometimes justice looks like an apology. Other times it just looks like nothing. But nothing is still something when you've been chasing crumbs your entire life. I walked more, slept better. I took Maya to the farmer's market and let her pick out fresh flowers. I filled the fridge with things that brought me joy, not practicality. I didn't feel free. I felt like I was learning how to exist without shrinking. That was enough. One afternoon I wrote in my journal, "I didn't win. I just stopped playing." Peace doesn't always feel like peace. Sometimes it feels like grief finally sitting down next to you and deciding to stop screaming. I didn't get closure. I got distance. And maybe for women like me, that's enough. Later that evening, as I read in the garden, Maya came out holding her coloring book. She looked at me, her head tilted. "Is this your spot now?" she asked, pointing at the chair. I smiled and reached out for her hand. "No, sweetie, it always was." Sometimes healing doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with a quiet morning, an open chair, and the choice to stop chasing people who never turned back. If there's anything I've learned, it's that boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges to self-respect. You can love someone deeply and still walk away when the cost becomes your peace. Maybe you've been the one excluded, overlooked, or rewritten. Maybe your family made you feel like a guest in your own life. If that's you, I see you. And you're not alone. What would you have done in my shoes? Do you believe forgiveness means staying, or can it mean letting go? If this story touched your heart, drop it in the comments or let me know where you're watching from. And if it didn't, I'd love to hear why. Your voice matters too. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more real stories that dig deep and heal gently. Your next chapter might start here.